The space station called Arcturus floated quietly in the darkness of space. Inside one of its large rooms, Commander Vexira stood with her forearms crossed. She was a tall alien with silver scales and bright amber eyes. Right now, those eyes were filled with worry as she looked through a thick glass window. Behind the glass were three small creatures. They looked like wolves from Earth, but their black fur glowed with blue and red lights that moved across their bodies. These were Kravith cubs, and they were the most dangerous babies in the entire galaxy. Their kind was almost extinct. Less than 200 of them lived anywhere in space. These three cubs were the first ones born in captivity in 10 years. The problem was simple but terrible. Nobody could train them. Every expert who tried ended up hurt and sent to the medical bay. The cubs had sharp claws that could cut through metal. They had poison in their throats. And worst of all, they were smart. Very smart. Dr. Kelvin stood next to the commander. He was a human with gray hair and a bandage on his arm. 3 days ago, one of the cubs had attacked him. He was lucky to be alive. "We have tried everything," Kelvin said quietly. "The best animal trainers from 40 different worlds have come here. None of them lasted more than an hour with those cubs. The Thros trainer wore special armor, but the cubs found the weak spot and tore it apart. The Mindari tried to read their minds, but the cubs attacked before he could even start." Vexira watched the cubs play. They were wrestling with each other, but their games looked more like real fights. In 8 months, they would be fully grown. If nobody could train them by then, they would be too wild and dangerous. The Galactic Council would lock them away forever. The Kravith species would die out. "There must be someone," Vexira said. "Anyone." Kelvin hesitated before speaking. "There is one more person, but you will not like my suggestion. Tell me. We have a human on this station. His name is Danny Morrison. He works in maintenance, fixing things around the station. But before he came to space, he worked with dangerous animals on Earth." Vexira turned to look at him. "A maintenance worker? The Council sent us the best specialist in the galaxy, and you want me to try a man who fixes broken machines?" "I know how it sounds," Kelvin replied. "But humans are different. On Earth, they lived with predators for millions of years. They turned wolves into dogs. They made friends with creatures that should have eaten them. They understand predators in a way we do not." The commander watched the cubs for a long moment. One of them, the biggest, was biting a metal feeding machine. His teeth left deep marks in the steel. In a few more months, he would be strong enough to bite through the walls. "Bring this human to my office," Vexira finally said. "But if he fails, we are finished. The Council will end the program. These cubs will spend their lives in cages, and their species will disappear forever." An hour later, Danny Morrison sat in the commander's office. He felt strange being there. For 5 years, he had worked on space stations, fixing air systems and broken doors. Before that, he had spent 8 years working with wild animals back on Earth. He was 32 years old, tall and thin, with rough hands from hard work. "Mr. Morrison," Vexira began. Her voice came through a translator that changed her clicking sounds into English. "Dr. Kelvin thinks you can help us with the Kravith cubs. I do not believe him, but we have no other choices. Tell me about your experience with dangerous animals." Danny leaned back in his chair. He spoke calmly and clearly. "I worked with wolves for many years. I raised bear cubs whose mothers died. I helped big cats learn to trust humans again after they were hurt. I worked with animals that everyone else said were impossible to train. These are not Earth animals," Vexira said sharply. "They are aliens. Their minds work differently. Their bodies work differently. Everything about them is different." "With respect, Commander, predators are predators," Danny answered. "The details change, but the basics stay the same. Young predators test everything. They want to know who is in charge. They need someone who is calm and confident, someone who understands their language." He paused, then continued. "I think all your experts made the same mistake. They treated the cubs like science experiments. They tried to use technology and tricks, but young predators do not respond to tricks. They respond to someone who understands them and earns their respect." Kelvin nodded. "The Thros trainer used computer programs and reward systems. The Mindari tried to force them to obey with mind powers. Everyone relied on machines and special equipment." "That is the problem," Danny said. "Young predators need guidance, not gadgets. They need someone who speaks their language. Let me see them." Vexira studied the human carefully. He did not look special. He did not have fancy equipment or advanced training. He was just a man who fixed broken things. but something in his eyes showed confidence. Not arrogance, just a quiet certainty. If you fail, Vexira said slowly, if you are hurt or killed, I cannot try again. The program will end. Do you understand? I understand, Danny said, but I will not fail. The next morning, the observation deck above the Kravith enclosure was crowded with scientists and workers. Everyone had heard that a human maintenance man was going to try what the galaxy's best experts could not do. Some people were curious. Most were skeptical. A few thought it was just going to be a tragedy. Danny stood at the window and watched the cubs below. The enclosure was huge, filled with fake rocks and plants to look like their home planet. The 3 cubs had names. Razor was the biggest and most aggressive. Shadow was sneaky and smart. Storm was the smallest but the fastest. Right now they were destroying a robot that had tried to bring them food. Metal pieces flew everywhere as they tore it apart with their claws and teeth. They are juveniles, Danny said, watching carefully. Maybe 6 or 7 months old in terms of development. This is the perfect age for training. They are testing everything because they are trying to understand the world. Dr. Kelvin stood next to him. We have tried feeding schedules, games, even showing them videos of adult Kravith. Nothing works. They get more violent every week. Danny studied how the cubs moved. He watched how they played and fought. He noticed how lights on their bodies changed colors when they felt different emotions. They are not violent, Danny said. They are frustrated and confused. Look at Storm. He keeps trying to start a hunting game, but the others do not respond correctly. They do not have an adult to teach them. They are stuck between being babies and being adults. That makes them anxious and angry. So what will you do? Vexira asked from behind him. Danny turned to face her. I'm going to walk in there, alone, no armor. No weapons, nothing. Everyone started talking at once. Kelvin held up his hands. Danny, that is suicide. They have hurt trained specialists wearing combat armor. They hurt those specialists because they were wearing armor, Danny replied. The cubs saw them as threats or toys. I need to go in as neither. I need to be calm. I need to be confident. I need to be what they are missing. A leader who is not afraid but also will not let them push him around. Vexira's tail moved back and forth, showing her stress. This is insane. I cannot allow this. Commander, you said it yourself. You have no other options, Danny said quietly. Let me try. If something goes wrong, you can pull me out in seconds. But I do not think anything will go wrong. After a long silence, Vexira nodded. 1 hour. If I see any sign of real danger, we will pull you out immediately. Danny walked down to the enclosure entrance. He took off his jacket and left behind everything except his basic clothes. Several workers tried to make him wear a communicator or emergency device, but he refused. They will smell the technology, he explained. I need to be as natural as possible. The airlock door opened. Danny Morrison stepped into the enclosure. His heart was beating fast, but his breathing stayed calm and steady. He knew what he was doing. He had done this before with wolves and bears and mountain lions. The species was different, but the principles were the same. The 3 cubs stopped moving. All their glowing stripes turned bright red. All 6 eyes locked onto him. The test was about to begin. Danny walked slowly into the enclosure. He did not walk straight toward the cubs. Instead, he moved at an angle as if he was just entering their space without caring about them too much. His body was relaxed. His shoulders were loose. He breathed slowly and evenly. The 3 Kravith cubs watched him with intense focus. Their stripes glowed bright red, which meant they were ready to fight or run. Every muscle in their small bodies was tense. Razor, the biggest cub, made the first move. He charged straight at Danny, running as fast as he could. His claws scraped against the ground. His teeth showed white and sharp. It was a test. He wanted to see if this strange creature would run away like prey. Danny did not run. He did not even step back. Instead, he turned to face Razor directly. He stood perfectly still. Then he made a sound deep in his throat. It was part growl, part bark. He had used this sound with wolf cubs back on Earth when they got too rough. Razor stopped running. He skidded to a halt about 3 meters away. His glowing stripes flickered from red to yellow. The yellow meant confusion. This was not how prey acted. This was not how the other trainers had acted either. Shadow and Storm tried a different approach. They split up and moved to circle Danny from both sides. They were trying to surround him, to attack from multiple directions. This was smart hunting behavior. Danny turned slowly, keeping all 3 cubs in his sight. Then he did something that surprised everyone watching from above. He sat down on a large rock. The movement was calm and deliberate. He was not running away like prey. He was not attacking like a threat. He was simply existing in their space. He was showing them that he belonged here too. The cubs did not know what to do with this. They had never seen behavior like this before. All the other trainers had either tried to dominate them or had shown fear. This human showed neither. For several long minutes, nothing happened. The cubs watched Danny. Danny sat quietly on his rock. He did not try to touch them. He did not call to them. He just waited. Storm, the smallest and most curious of the three, started to move closer. His belly was low to the ground. He crept forward very slowly. One step, then another. His nose twitched as he tried to understand Danny's scent. Above in the observation deck, Dr. Kelvin held his breath. Commander Vexira leaned forward, her hand ready to hit the emergency extraction button. Storm came within 2 meters of Danny, then 1 meter. His small black nose worked constantly, taking in information. Then very carefully he reached out one paw and touched Danny's hand. Danny moved his hand slowly, turning it palm up. Storm's stripes changed from red to blue. Blue meant curiosity and calm interest. The cubs sniffed Danny's palm, learning his scent. This was the signal the other cubs needed. Razor and Shadow came forward too, their confidence growing. Within minutes, all 3 cubs were investigating Danny. They sniffed his clothes. They pawed at his boots. They tested him with small pushes and gentle bites. When Razor bit Danny's sleeve experimentally, Danny made that sharp sound again. He gently but firmly pushed Razor's nose away. He was setting a boundary. He was saying that this behavior was not acceptable. Razor's stripes flickered. For a moment, it looked like he might attack, but then he just sat down watching Danny with new respect. The human had corrected him without hurting him. Without fear, just clear communication. Danny stayed in the enclosure for the full hour. He slowly introduced gentle touches. He used sounds and hand movements as basic commands. When Shadow got too rough, Danny corrected him. When Storm showed submissive behavior by rolling on his back, Danny rewarded him with attention and soft scratches behind his ears. The key was consistency. Every action had a consequence. Every behavior got a response. The cubs started to understand that this human had rules, and those rules did not change. By the time the hour ended, all 3 cubs were resting near Danny. Their stripes glowed with peaceful blue and green colors. They were calm. They were content. When Danny stood up to leave, they followed him to the airlock door. They made soft whining sounds when he stepped through and the door closed between them. The observation deck was completely silent. Every scientist, every worker, every expert stood in shock. They had just watched something that should have been impossible. Dr. Kelvin was the first to speak. His voice was barely a whisper. That should not have worked. According to every model we have, according to every theory, that should not have worked. Danny looked up at them through the window. He was sweating and tired, but he smiled. It worked because I did not try to use your models or theories. I just tried to understand what they needed. Tomorrow we start real training. Over the next few days, Danny established a routine. He arrived at the enclosure every morning at the same time. The cubs learned to expect him. They would be waiting at the door when he arrived. Their stripes bright with excitement. He started teaching them basic commands. Sit, stay, come, stop. He used a combination of hand signals and sounds that he made with his voice. The sounds were similar to noises that adult Kravith made on their home planet, based on research recordings. The cubs learned fast. Very fast. Their intelligence became obvious. Razor understood commands after just 2 or 3 repetitions. Shadow was even quicker with anything involving stealth or sneaking. Storm, the smallest, had the best memory. If Danny taught him something once, Storm never forgot it. But Danny was not just training them to obey commands. He was teaching them to be proper Kravith. He studied videos of wild Kravith hunting. He watched how they moved, how they communicated with the glowing patterns on their fur, how they worked together. Then he created training exercises that mimicked real hunting. He made a lure from scraps of fabric and attached it to a long rope. He pulled it through the enclosure, making it move like prey. The cubs learned to stalk it. They learned to coordinate their attacks. Razor would charge from the front while Shadow flanked from the side and Storm cut off the escape route. Dr. Kelvin watched these sessions with fascination. He recorded everything, filling notebook after notebook with observations. He is not using any conventional training methods, Kelvin explained to Commander Vexira one evening. No food rewards. No punishment systems. No technology at all. He is simply being present with them. He is establishing himself as a stable figure in their lives. But why does it work? Vexira asked. Our models said that Kravith cubs would only respond to dominance displays or maternal bonding. A human should not be able to provide either. I think that is exactly why it works, Kelvin replied. We were so focused on them being alien that we forgot about basic mammalian behavior. Young social predators across hundreds of species respond to the same things. Confidence, consistency, calm authority. Danny provides all of that. In the enclosure, Danny was working on social behavior. This was important. The cubs needed to learn how to interact with each other properly. Right now, their play often turned into real fights. They did not know how to control their strength. Danny taught them by example. When they groomed each other, he showed them how to be gentle. When they played, he taught them the difference between play and real aggression. When they got too rough, he separated them and made them calm down before they could play again. The breakthrough came during the third week. Storm had been playing too roughly with Shadow. His claws had drawn blood. Shadow yelped and ran away to hide behind a rock. Danny stood up immediately. He walked over and blocked Storm's path. He did not yell. He did not hit the cub. He simply stood tall and made that low growling sound that rumbled in his chest. Storm's stripes flared bright red. He was angry at being challenged. His claws extended. His teeth showed. For a moment, everyone watching thought Danny was about to die. But Danny did not back down. He looked Storm straight in the eyes. His posture was firm but not aggressive. He was sending a clear message. This behavior stops now. The standoff lasted almost a minute. It felt like an hour. Then slowly Storm's stripes changed from red to yellow to blue. The cub lowered his head. He approached Danny with his belly close to the ground, showing submission. Danny reached out and placed his hand on Storm's head. It was a gesture of forgiveness and acceptance. The lesson was over. Storm had learned. From that moment, everything changed. The cubs stopped seeing Danny as just a presence in their environment. They started seeing him as a leader, not through fear but through respect. When Danny entered the enclosure each morning, they greeted him enthusiastically but with control. When he worked with one cub individually, the others waited patiently. When he left each evening, they settled down calmly instead of becoming distressed. This is remarkable, said Dr. Lisa, a visiting expert from another world. She looked like a tall bird covered in feathers. He has become their surrogate parent, their pack leader, but he did it through mutual respect, not dominance. Danny overheard this during a break. He shook his head. I am not their parent or their leader. I am their guide. I am showing them how to be good Kravith, how to use their instincts properly, how to exist in a social group. When they go back to the wild, they will not follow me. They will follow what I taught them. Commander Vexira approached him. Can it translate to the wild? You are preparing them for release on their home planet. Will they survive without you? That is what the next phase is about, Danny answered. Right now, The fourth month of training brought new challenges. Danny had been gradually making the exercises harder. The cubs were growing fast now. Razor was almost as tall as Danny's waist. Shadow's muscles rippled under his black fur. Storm was still the smallest, but he was quick and clever. Today, Danny was teaching them to hunt as a team. He had created a more complex lure system with multiple targets moving at different speeds. The cubs needed to decide together which target to chase, who would lead the attack, and how to coordinate their movements. Razor, wait, Danny said, holding up his hand. Razor was crouched low, ready to charge. His whole body vibrated with eagerness. But at Danny's command, he held still. His stripes flickered with impatience, but he obeyed. Shadow, circle left. Storm, circle right. Danny used hand signals along with his words. The two cubs split up, moving to flank their target. They kept low to the ground, using the artificial rocks and plants for cover. Now, Razor, go. Razor exploded forward. At the same moment, Shadow and Storm closed in from the sides. The lure had nowhere to run. They brought it down together, working as a perfect unit. Danny felt pride swelling in his chest. These cubs had come so far. When he first met them, they could barely coordinate a simple charge. Now they were hunting like a trained pack, but pride was dangerous. He could not let himself forget that these were not pets. They were wild predators who needed to return to their natural home. Every lesson had to prepare them for that future. Dr. Kelvin entered the enclosure to observe. This was new. For months, only Danny had been allowed inside with the cubs, but as they became more controlled, more predictable, others could carefully join. The cubs noticed Kelvin immediately. Their stripes turned yellow, showing caution. Shadow took a few steps toward him, testing. "Shadow, gentle," Danny said firmly. The cub stopped advancing. His stripes shifted to blue. He approached Kelvin slowly, sniffing carefully but with no aggression. "This is incredible," Kelvin whispered, afraid to move too much. "A month ago they would have attacked me on sight." "They still might if you do something wrong," Danny warned. "Stay calm. Do not make sudden movements. Let them investigate you on their terms." Storm and Razor came to sniff Kelvin as well. The doctor stood perfectly still, barely breathing. The cubs circled him, learning his scent, deciding if he was a threat. After a few tense minutes, they lost interest and went back to playing with their lure. "You have done something amazing here," Kelvin said to Danny, "but I have concerns about the next phase." "What concerns?" "We have received word that representatives from the Kravith homeworld are coming to the station. They want to see the cubs. They want to evaluate whether our training program is appropriate." Danny frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means they will decide if the cubs can stay here or if they must be taken to the Kravith Reserve immediately. The elders are skeptical that aliens, especially humans, can properly prepare their young for life in the wild." "The cubs are not ready for that," Danny said. "They still need months of training. They have never even seen an adult Kravith in person." "I know," Kelvin replied, "but the Kravith elders have legal authority over their species. If they decide our methods are wrong, they can take the cubs away. And honestly, the Kravith do not have the resources to raise them properly. Their population is too scattered. Too broken." Danny watched the cubs playing. They were so young still, so full of potential. The thought of them being taken away before they were ready filled him with a cold dread. "When will the elders arrive?" he asked. "1 week." Danny nodded slowly. "Then we have 1 week to prove that what we are doing here is right." Over the next 7 days, Danny pushed the training harder than ever. He introduced new challenges every day. He taught the cubs to navigate complex terrain. He showed them how to find water sources. He even started teaching them to recognize dangerous plants by smell, using samples from their home planet. But the most important lesson was social behavior. The cubs needed to understand hierarchy, cooperation, and communication within a pack structure. Danny could teach them the basics, but they needed to learn from their own kind. On the 7th day, a diplomatic ship docked at Arcturus Station. 4 elderly Kravith stepped off, wearing traditional wraps decorated with symbols. With them came a female named Kira. She was magnificent, twice the size of the cubs, with battle scars marking her dark fur. Her stripes glowed with deep purple, the color of authority and power. Commander Vexira called an emergency meeting. Danny, Kelvin, and several other scientists gathered in the conference room. The Kravith elders sat on specially designed platforms, their eyes studying the humans with distrust. The oldest elder, a scarred male named Theron, spoke. His words came through a translator device. "We have come to see these cubs that you claim to be training. We are skeptical. Our species has specific needs, specific instincts. We do not believe that aliens can understand these things." "I understand your concerns," Commander Vexira replied diplomatically, "but I assure you that our methods have been successful. The cubs have responded well to training. We will judge that for ourselves," Theron said. "We wish to see them tomorrow, and we wish to introduce them to Kira. She is one of our finest hunters. If your training is effective, the cubs will respond appropriately to an adult of their species." After the meeting ended, Danny approached Commander Vexira in private. "Introducing Kira to the cubs is dangerous. They have never met an adult Kravith. Their behavior is unpredictable." "I know," Vexira said, "but the elders are insistent. This is not negotiable. The cubs must prove they are being properly trained, or the elders will take them away." Danny ran his hand through his hair. "If the cubs react badly, if they attack Kira, or if she hurts them, it could destroy everything we have built." "Then make sure they do not react badly," Vexira said. "You have 1 night to prepare them." Danny spent that night in the enclosure with the cubs. He could not explain to them what was coming. They did not understand human words beyond simple commands. but he could reinforce the lessons they had learned: control, patience, trust. He worked with each cub individually. With Razor, he practiced impulse control. The big cub wanted to charge at everything, but Danny taught him to wait, to assess, to think before acting. With Shadow, he worked on reading body language and responding appropriately. With Storm, he practiced submission behaviors, showing the smallest cub that there was no shame in backing down from a stronger opponent. The next morning, the observation deck was packed. Scientists, station personnel, diplomats, and the Kravith elders all gathered to watch. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Danny entered the enclosure as usual. The cubs greeted him with enthusiasm, their stripes glowing happy blue. He put them through their normal routine: commands, hunting exercises, coordination drills. Everything went perfectly. The Kravith elders watched in silence. Their expressions were unreadable. Then Commander Vexira's voice came through the communication system. "Danny, they want to see how the cubs react to Kira. We are going to bring her into the enclosure." Danny's stomach tightened. "Commander, I do not think this is wise. We have not prepared for this." "It is not a request," Vexira replied. "Stand by." A secondary airlock on the far side of the enclosure opened. Kira stepped through. She was massive, powerful. Her stripes blazed bright red, a display of dominance and warning. This was her space now. The cubs' reaction was instant. They saw an intruder in their territory. Razor charged toward Kira, his stripes flaring red in response. Shadow and Storm flanked him. Their body language was aggressive, territorial. Kira roared. The sound shook the walls of the enclosure. It was a sound of power and authority. She lunged toward Razor, ready to teach this insolent cub a lesson about respect. Danny did not think. He ran. He threw himself between Kira and Razor, placing his body in the path of the charging adult Kravith. "Razor, down!" His voice was sharp, absolute. It cut through the chaos like a blade. Time seemed to stop. Razor was consumed by instinct. Kira was mid-charge. Everything hung in perfect balance. Then Razor dropped to his belly. His stripes flickered from red to yellow. Shadow and Storm followed immediately, responding to Danny's authority even when their instincts screamed at them to fight. Kira stopped. She was confused. Why had the cub submitted to this human? She circled Danny, her nose working, trying to understand what kind of creature he was. Danny stood very still. He controlled his breathing. He did not challenge Kira. He did not try to dominate her. Instead, he turned slightly, showing his side in a gesture of non-aggression. But he stayed between her and the cubs. He was protecting his charges. The message was clear. He was not her enemy, but he would not let her hurt them. Kira approached slowly. She sniffed him. No fear, no aggression, just calm determination. She huffed, a sound that meant curiosity. Then she lowered her head slightly, acknowledging Danny's role. Danny slowly turned toward the cubs. His heart was pounding, but he kept his movements calm and controlled. "Razor, come. Gentle." The big cub approached cautiously, his stripes shifting from yellow to blue. He kept his head low, showing respect. "Shadow, Storm, stay," Danny commanded. They remained in place, watching everything with alert eyes. Danny placed one hand on Razor's shoulder and guided him toward Kira. "This is what a real Kravith looks like. This is what you will become. Show respect." Razor approached the adult female with submissive body language. His head was low. His movements were slow. Kira watched him carefully, her stripes still glowing with warning red. Then she leaned down and sniffed him thoroughly. What happened next made everyone in the observation deck gasp. Kira began to groom Razor with her tongue. It was a motherly gesture. It meant acceptance. The adult Kravith was telling the cub that he had behaved correctly. Danny felt relief wash over him. This was the moment that mattered. If Kira accepted the cubs, if she approved of their behavior, then the elders would have to admit that the training was working. He slowly brought Shadow forward next. The sneaky cub was nervous. His stripes flickered rapidly between colors. But he trusted Danny. He approached Kira with the same submissive posture that Razor had shown. Kira sniffed Shadow and groomed him as well. 2 down, 1 to go. Storm was the hardest. The smallest cub was also the most emotional. His stripes showed his fear clearly. He did not want to approach the massive adult. Danny knelt down beside Storm and placed his hand gently on the cub's back. "I know you are scared," Danny said softly, "but you can do this." Trust me. Storm looked up at Danny with eyes that seemed far too intelligent for an animal. Then he took a step forward. Then another. He approached Kira slowly, his whole body trembling. Kira studied the smallest cub for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She lay down, making herself smaller and less threatening. She was showing Storm that he had nothing to fear. Storm approached and touched his nose to Kira's. The adult female rumbled deep in her chest, a sound of approval and welcome. She groomed Storm gently, carefully, as if she understood how fragile his courage was. Danny stepped back and let the four Kravith interact naturally. Over the next hour, he watched as Kira taught the cubs things he never could. She showed them proper greeting rituals. She demonstrated hunting postures that were specific to their species. She communicated through the glowing patterns on her fur in ways that Danny had tried to mimic, but could never truly replicate. The cubs learned eagerly. They absorbed everything Kira showed them. This was what they needed. This was the connection to their own kind that had been missing. When the session ended and Danny prepared to leave the enclosure, the cubs followed him to the airlock as always. But something had changed. They looked back at Kira multiple times. They were torn between their attachment to Danny and their natural attraction to their own species. This was good. This was what needed to happen. In the observation deck, the Kravith elders were having a heated discussion in their own language. Theron finally turned to Commander Vexira and spoke through the translator. We came here expecting to see our young corrupted by alien influence. We expected to see them acting like trained pets, stripped of their natural instincts and dignity. Vexira tensed, preparing for the worst. Instead, Theron continued, we see cubs who have been taught discipline and control while maintaining their essential nature. We see young Kravith who respond to authority but are not broken by it. The human has done what we thought impossible. He has prepared them for life among our people. Vexira exhaled slowly. So you approve of our methods? We do more than approve, Theron said. We request that the human continue training the cubs for another 2 months. Then we will take them to our homeworld for final integration with the wild population. Kira will accompany them as their mentor and guide. Danny was called to the conference room after the session. The Kravith elders studied him with their dark eyes. He stood uncomfortably, unsure what to expect. You have done well, human, Theron said. You understood something that even we had forgotten. Young Kravith do not need domination. They need guidance. They do not need to be controlled. They need to be taught. I just did what I thought was right, Danny replied honestly. They are good cubs, smart, brave. They deserved someone who believed in them. This is wisdom, Theron said. His stripes glowed with approval. We ask that you continue your work. 2 more months. Prepare them fully, then they will return home with Kira. Danny nodded. I will do my best. The next 2 months were intense. With Kira's presence, the training evolved. Danny focused on teaching the cubs survival skills, while Kira taught them cultural behaviors specific to Kravith society. They learned hunting techniques that had been passed down through generations. They learned to read the complex language of bioluminescent patterns. They learned songs that Kravith sang during the hunt. Danny began to gradually reduce his time with the cubs. At first, he spent 6 hours a day with them, then 5, then 4. He was slowly removing himself from their lives, encouraging them to bond more strongly with Kira. It was harder than he expected. The cubs had been his responsibility for months. He had raised them from aggressive, confused youngsters into capable predators. Watching them need him less was painful, even though he knew it was necessary. Storm took the separation the hardest. The smallest cub would wait by the airlock every morning for Danny to arrive. When Danny finally came, Storm would press against his legs and make soft whining sounds. But even Storm was learning to turn to Kira first for guidance. Razor became more confident each day. Under Kira's teaching, he was developing into a strong leader. He protected his siblings and made decisions for the group. He was going to be a magnificent adult. Shadow was learning advanced hunting techniques from Kira. His natural sneakiness combined with proper Kravith training made him a formidable predator. He could move through the enclosure without making a sound, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Dr. Kelvin documented everything. He had filled dozens of notebooks with observations. His research papers about Danny's training methods were being read by xenobiologists across the galaxy. You have changed how we think about cross-species interaction, Kelvin told Danny one evening. They were sitting in the observation deck watching Kira teach the cubs below. You proved that successful training is not about technology or force. It is about empathy and patience. I just treated them like individuals, Danny said. Every animal is different. You have to learn their personality, understand their needs, respect their nature. That seems obvious now, Kelvin replied. But it was not obvious to any of us until you showed us. On the final day of training, Danny entered the enclosure one last time. Tomorrow, the cubs would board a transport ship with Kira. They would begin their journey to the Kravith homeworld. Danny would never see them again. He spent hours with them. They played their old games. He ran them through their favorite hunting exercises. He scratched behind their ears and let them groom his hair with their tongues. A Kravith bonding behavior they had learned from Kira. As the sun simulation in the enclosure began to set, creating artificial twilight, the three cubs lay down around Danny. Storm rested his big head on Danny's lap. Razor pressed against his side. Shadow dozed nearby, one ear always alert. You are ready, Danny told them quietly. You are going home. You will see real forests, real prey, real weather. You will find mates and have cubs of your own someday. You will save your species. Razor made a deep sound in his chest that meant contentment. His stripes glowed gentle blue, the color of peace and happiness. I am proud of you, Danny continued. All three of you. You learned so much. You grew so strong. You are going to do amazing things. Storm nuzzled closer, his stripes flickering with emotions Danny could now read clearly. Affection, gratitude, sadness at the coming separation. I will miss you too, Danny admitted, but this is how it has to be. You are not mine. You never were. You belong with your own people. You belong in the wild. Kira approached and sat down near the group. She had been listening. Her stripes showed approval and respect. She would take good care of them. Danny knew this. As the artificial night fell completely, Danny stood to leave. The cubs followed him to the airlock one final time. They made soft sounds, trying to understand why he was leaving. Danny knelt down and touched each of them one last time. Goodbye, Razor, be strong. Goodbye, Shadow, be clever. Goodbye, Storm, be brave. Then he stepped through the airlock. The door closed between them. Through the transparent barrier, he could see three pairs of glowing eyes watching him. Their stripes pulsed with sadness. Danny turned and walked away. He did not let himself look back. Looking back would make it harder. This was right. This was necessary. This was what he had been working toward from the very beginning. But that did not make it hurt any less. The morning of departure arrived cold and gray. At least that was how it felt to Danny, even though the station's interior temperature never changed. He stood on the observation deck and watched as technicians prepared the transport ship. The vessel was large and specially designed for carrying dangerous creatures safely across space. Commander Vexira found him there. She stood beside him silently for a moment before speaking. You do not have to watch them leave. You could remain in your quarters. I need to see them off, Danny replied. I need to know they departed safely. They will be fine. Kira is with them. The transport crew is experienced. The journey to Kravos Prime will take 3 weeks, but they will be comfortable. Danny nodded but said nothing. He knew all of this. It did not make the leaving easier. Down in the docking bay, the cubs were being loaded into their transport containers. These were not cages. They were spacious compartments with soft bedding, climate control, and entertainment enrichment. Each cub had their own space, but they could see and smell each other through transparent barriers. Kira would have free access to all 3 containers during the journey. Razor entered his container with confidence, his stripes glowing curious blue. He sniffed everything, investigating his new environment. Shadow was more cautious, checking every corner before settling down. Storm hesitated at the entrance, looking around as if searching for someone. Danny's chest tightened. Storm was looking for him. Dr. Kelvin approached from behind. The Kravith elders asked me to give you this. He handed Danny a small device. It is a communication tablet. You can receive updates about the cubs, videos, status reports. They wanted you to know how they are doing. That is kind of them, Danny said, accepting the tablet. It is more than kindness, Kelvin replied. You saved their species. 3 cubs do not sound like many, but with proper breeding programs, they could produce dozens of offspring over their lifetimes. You gave the Kravith a future. I just trained some cubs, Danny said quietly. You did much more than that. Kelvin placed a hand on Danny's shoulder. You showed the entire galaxy something important. You proved that different species can understand each other, not through technology, not through force, through patience and respect. The transport ship began its final preparations. The airlock sealed. The engines powered up. Danny watched as the ship detached from the station and slowly moved away toward the jump gate that would carry it across the galaxy. Somewhere inside that ship, 3 young Kravith were beginning their journey home. They would arrive on a planet they had never seen, with forests and mountains and rivers. They would meet other Kravith. They would hunt real prey. They would live free. The ship disappeared into the distance, becoming just another point of light among the stars. Danny turned and walked away from the observation deck. Commander Vexira called after him. Danny, wait. We need to discuss your future. The Galactic Council wants to offer you a position as a xenobiology consultant. You could travel to different worlds, work with endangered species, train others in your methods. The pay would be substantial. Danny stopped walking but did not turn around. I appreciate the offer, Commander, but I am not a consultant. I am not a scientist. I am just a maintenance worker who grew up around animals. You could be so much more, Vexira insisted. Maybe, Danny said, but right now I need to get back to what I know. There are broken air filters on Deck 7 that need fixing. He walked away, leaving the commander standing alone. Over the next 3 weeks, Danny threw himself into his work. He fixed air systems, repaired water recyclers, replaced worn power cables. The routine work was comforting. It did not require emotional investment. It did not leave him missing creatures he had come to care about. But every evening he checked the tablet the elders had given him. Updates came regularly. The cubs were healthy. They were adjusting to shipboard life. Kira was teaching them new things every day. There were videos of them playing, eating, sleeping. Danny watched each video multiple times. He looked for signs that they were happy, that they were continuing to grow and learn. He worried that they might be stressed or scared. But the video showed cubs that were confident and content. 3 weeks after departure, a new message arrived. The transport ship had arrived at Kravos Prime. The cubs would be released into the protected reserve the next day. There would be live footage of the release sent to Danny's tablet. He did not sleep that night. He sat in his small quarters, staring at the blank screen of the tablet, waiting for dawn. When the footage finally arrived, Danny watched with his heart in his throat. The video showed a lush forest, nothing like the artificial enclosure on Arcturus Station. Real trees stretched toward a purple sky. Strange birds flew between branches. A river rushed over smooth stones. A transport container sat in a clearing. Its door slowly opened. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Razor stepped out cautiously. His nose worked overtime, processing thousands of new scents. His stripes flickered rapidly through multiple colors as his emotions overwhelmed him. Shadow emerged next, immediately crouching low and testing the terrain. His natural sneakiness engaged as he investigated this new environment. Storm was the last to come out. The smallest cub stood at the edge of the container, looking around with wide eyes. The world was so big, so overwhelming. For a moment it looked like he might retreat back into the safety of the container. Then Razor lifted his head and roared. It was a sound of pure joy and freedom. Shadow and Storm joined him, their voices echoing through the forest. 3 young Kravith announcing themselves to their homeworld. Danny felt tears on his face. He did not bother to wipe them away. The video continued. The cubs explored the forest cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. They splashed in the stream. They climbed trees. They chased strange insects that glowed in the shadows. Kira watched over them, guiding them, teaching them which plants were safe and which were dangerous. Then something amazing happened. A small pack of wild Kravith juveniles appeared at the edge of the clearing. There were 5 of them, slightly older than Danny's cubs. They had been born in the wild and raised by their own kind. There was tension at first. The 2 groups faced each other warily. Stripes flashed warning colors. Low growls rumbled through the air. Razor took a step forward. His stripes showed neither aggression nor fear, just curiosity and confidence. He had learned his lessons well. He knew how to approach other predators properly. One of the wild cubs, a female with distinctive white markings on her face, approached slowly. She and Razor sniffed each other carefully. Their stripes shifted through questioning colors. Then gradually, both sets of stripes turned blue. Acceptance. Within minutes, all 8 young Kravith were playing together. They wrestled and chased and explored as a unified group. Danny's cubs integrated seamlessly with the wild ones. The training had worked. They belonged here. They were home. The video ended with a message from Theron, the eldest of the Kravith elders. His voice came through the translator with warmth and gratitude. Danny Morrison, you have given us the greatest gift. You have given us hope. These 3 cubs will grow strong. They will have offspring. Those offspring will have offspring. Our species will survive because of you. We will never forget what you have done. You will always be remembered as a friend to the Kravith people. Danny set down the tablet and covered his face with his hands. He cried for several minutes, letting all the emotions of the past months pour out. Relief, pride, sadness, joy, all mixed together. When he finally composed himself, he stood and looked out the small window of his quarters. Space stretched endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there, 3 young predators were learning to hunt real prey under alien stars. They were alive. They were free. They were where they belonged. That was all that mattered. Dr. Kelvin published his final report to the Galactic Council a month later. The document was read by scientists and leaders across dozens of worlds. It concluded with words that would be quoted for years to come. Humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy may not be our technology or our scientific methods. It may be our understanding that training is not about control. It is about communication. It is about respect. It is about recognizing that every species, no matter how different, shares basic needs: security, purpose, belonging. Danny Morrison did not train the Kravith cubs to obey him. He taught them to trust themselves. He showed them how to be the best version of what they already were. In doing so, he may have saved an entire species from extinction. The cubs did not sit obediently because a human dominated them. They sat because a human understood them. There is a profound difference between those two things. It is a difference that the galaxy is only beginning to appreciate. On Arcturus Station, Danny Morrison returned to his maintenance duties. He fixed broken machines. He repaired faulty systems. He lived a quiet life that most people would consider ordinary, but sometimes during his breaks he would access the live camera feeds from the Kravos Prime Reserve. He would watch 3 young Kravith hunting together through dense forests. He would see them interact with other members of their species. He would observe them learning and growing and living. Commander Vexira found him watching the feeds one evening. She sat down beside him without speaking. Together,